everyone. Welcome to another fabulous edition of Behind the Pink Wall. My name is Jasmine Jones, and I am your host for today. And joining me is Jane Smith. Hi, Jane.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm great.
Great. So Jane is the love of my life because she reached out to me. We found each other online, and she's a corporate wellness coach. And she is so much more than that. So Jane has a dynamic personality and a beautiful spirit. And what I love most about her is that I often call her a survivor. And she asked me to stop calling her that because she doesn't love that title. And we're here today to tell you why. She's lived through so much and has come out the other side phenomenally. So welcome, Jane.
Thank you.
Let's tell everybody a little bit about your story.
Okay.
So tell me about your breast cancer diagnosis. We'll start there and then kind of hear about life after.
Okay.
So how did you find out you had breast cancer?
I found a lump. I found a lump on my birthday. I was taking a bath and wasn't really checking things, but I found a pretty large lump kind of at the top of my right breast. And it puts a fear of God in you right away, of course. So took a deep breath and got dressed, and ultimately, through time, found out that it was breast cancer. My lump was mammogram silent. So one of the things I want to tell women right now is you need to know your body and do self-checks. Even when I could show them where it was and they could feel it, they had a hard time finding it on an ultrasound machine, even. So I'm glad I found it because breast cancer is one of those diagnoses where you don't necessarily feel any different, right? So at any rate, it was sort of my way of discovering and starting that journey.
Okay, so when you found out, what did you decide to do?
When it was diagnosed, I decided to have a mastectomy. I had to have a mastectomy. Initially, they said a lumpectomy would be enough with radiation.
Okay.
And then I had a real horrific procedure done, which many women have, which is an MRI biopsy. So they essentially shoot dye into your breast to help them identify where clusters might be. And I got a phone call a couple weeks later that said I had too much cancer in my breast and they had to take it.
Wow.
So, yeah, that was in 2008. And I'm pretty good now about talking about it, but forgive me if I get a little wigged out about it. The one thing that they did for me, as they do for many women, was to have a conversation about, would you like to have reconstruction done? And I had to think about that. I did see a plastic surgeon. They usually encourage us to do that, just to get a sense of what that would take, what our options are. But I really felt for me a couple of things. At the time of my mastectomy, I was 53.
Okay.
So I wasn't super young. I'd been married around 30 years and had a pretty intact relationship. So that probably helped me to decide, you know what, I'm just going to keep this same old body. I don't want it to have to go through anything else if I can avoid it. I want to sleep on my stomach. I want to feel my body.
Right.
And so I opted not for an implant. Not to have one.
Okay, so you decided instead of an implant, you'd do prosthetics?
Right.
Okay, and what was that experience like for you, the shopping experience?
Well, one of the things I love about Cherry Blossom Intimates is that you guys are getting into this in a big way, because so often women wind up going to like a durable medical equipment vendor. I had that experience, and it's absolutely jarring. You feel as though you're being fit for maybe a leg or an arm. I don't want to take anything away from amputees, but I think our breasts are so intimate. The feeling of sexuality is so intimate. I think that's one of the real difficult things about breast cancer. And it's so important to be treated and to remind yourself that even if you've lost a breast, you are still that sassy, feminine spirit. And that's why stores like yours are so precious and so hard to find. But I was fitted for a prosthesis. Her name is Lucy.
Oh, okay, so she has a name.
She has a name. And because I have been in recovery or in the next steps now for the rest of my life, I get a new Lucy every so often, depending upon insurance and my needs. I also have a swimming prosthesis, which I love. It's beaded, which means the water flows through it. It's not as heavy in my bathing suit. So I have the girls. I have 3 girls now. I have this one and Lucy and then her sister.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me about some of the physical changes and things you've experienced after coming out on the other side, right?
Okay.
So, you beat cancer. It's one of those things, like experiences that are still with you. But tell me about some of the physical changes that you've experienced.
One of the things that I experienced was just exhaustion.
Okay.
And I don't think that we give exhaustion enough credit.
Physical, emotional?
Both.
Okay.
I was lucky in that I had oncotype testing, which is becoming more common for women. So we get a sense of what kind of tumor you have or had,
Okay.
and what is the risk of recurrence. And it happens, they take a little section of your tumor during surgery and send it to this amazing database. So it's nothing I had to do separately. But when that result came back then, my oncologist and my surgeon were able to sit down and decide if I needed chemotherapy or not. I had a 19% percentage risk of recurrence. So I was lucky,
Okay.
and they opted not to do chemo for me, which was heaven sent. I was so glad. That being said, I was put on tamoxifen, I was put on an aromatase inhibitor. I was still, sorry men, I was still having my period. And that was a real concern because my tumor was estrogen positive. So it was like, can we shut down this girly part? Can we just shut down this girly part? Because you're just manufacturing more of what that tumor feeds on. And several years later, I did have a hysterectomy, which was wonderful. I finally switched OBGYNs after several procedures that didn't work. And this wonderful woman said, let's just take your luggage. So I was like, okay, take my luggage.
Okay.
You know, I've had my babies, I don't need my luggage.
Right.
And that was really great. That was really great. Yeah, her name is Dr. Carolyn Young. She practices in Rockville, Maryland.
Okay.
But it was wonderful. But regardless, the emotional and physical exhaustion, I think, that comes from the ordeal, the procedures, the anesthesia, the incredible health care team that you inherit when you are diagnosed, managing films, managing family dynamics, figuring out your career. It's all exhausting, but it really starts with the body. My body was just very, very tired for a long time.
Okay. And when did you start to feel like you were coming out of it? Have you come out of it?
I don't know if I've come out of it or I've just shifted.
Okay.
It probably a good 2 years.
Okay.
And I think that's why it's important for women to know after surgery, after treatment, whatever that is, you need to give yourself some time just to breathe and just to kind of absorb, you know, and to just not judge and to let your body just kind of refigure. Because in my chest wall, you know, there was a lot that needed to happen with muscle repair. I know that with some of the drugs that I was on, you know, that affects you. But it took a couple good years. And I really encourage women, don't jump into something right away thinking that, okay, chapter done.
Right.
That chapter needs some time to just kind of transition.
So tell me about the emotional transition then. How was that?
For every woman, it's different.
Okay.
And I want to be sure women know there are no rules. For me, I tend to be a private person when things happen that are unsettling. So I did not jump into a support group. I felt that I would take on everybody else's stuff. I'm really good at doing that. I think most women are. And that's not what I wanted. I needed time to settle. I did eventually take myself down to the National Museum of Women in the Arts in DC. I think art is inspiring, music is inspiring. They had a workshop with a storyteller and a life coach. They had about 20 women from the DC metro area that were dealing with all sorts of issues, not just cancer. And we spent a day kind of learning about how to change up our story, how to think differently about our life's purpose and meaning. And Jasmine, one of the neatest things we did was we had a tour of the artwork, and then our homework during lunch was to go back and to write a new story about ourselves based on a piece that really resonated with us.
Wow.
So it was fascinating. It was fascinating to see what women chose and why. And for me, it was very clear knowing who I would have chosen and knowing what I chose. But that was sort of like my public coming out, if you will, of saying to a group that I have breast cancer, because it's something that we don't need to share with everybody. And that really helped me a lot. And then I found emotionally too that I had to kind of refigure out who I am, because what was true and real for me as a woman wasn't anymore. And part of that maybe is a game that we play with ourselves, but it's also the reality that even my most amazing breast surgeon, Dr. Catherine Alley, who's retired, but she was incredible, she said to me the morning that she wheeled me into the operating room before she left me and my husband Mark to kind of say our final whatevers, she said, you know, I'm about to do something very barbaric to you. And that's a pretty powerful word, and it's pretty scary, and it's pretty gruesome. When I was little, my grandmother, who was in her late 80s, had a mastectomy, and I thought, that is one of the most wicked things I can ever imagine. So yeah, realizing something barbaric had happened to me, and you know, when you come out of having had a mastectomy, you have drains because they have to drain a lot of the fluids. I had, you know, a huge incision. So just emotionally kind of taking this in, not from a physical pain perspective, but kind of from an, oh my God, now where do we go from here? It takes a while. It takes a while.
Tell me about that feeling after you woke up and your life has changed. How did you feel emotionally?
One of the things that I did a couple of weeks before my mastectomy, and I've talked to other women who have done this. My husband and I went away to the Eastern Shore for a weekend, and I found this beautiful little place. It was my mastectomy was in October, so it was like late September, which is a beautiful time in Maryland. And I sat down and I said goodbye to my breast.
Did you?
And it was kind of this. It wasn't a ritual, but it was kind of, I wanted to thank her. Sorry. I wanted to thank her for that body I had. I wanted to thank her for, this is hard.
Take your time.
Thank you. I wanted to thank her for the pleasure she had given me and for my husband, and we'll just leave it at that.
Yes.
I didn't nurse my daughters. I could have, but you know, I think that there's so much that comes into that. So I was pretty much at peace as far as I could be about, like, I'd said my goodbyes. I mean, how weird is that? But it's true. So when I woke up and Dr. Alley said it went well, I was satisfied. I wasn't happy, but I was satisfied that, you know, there were no big surprises, that I woke up, I got to wake up, that my life somehow would continue with my husband and my daughters and my world. But there was also this sense of incredible privacy in a way. I think it goes very deep. It goes into your core. I think anybody that's been diagnosed with any type of cancer, it's just this sense of, how did this body betray me, and what does this mean next? And it's like walking through a new door and you have no idea. You just, I just had to like try to just breathe deep and withhold judgment. But essentially, I felt fortunate that I had great health care. I had insurance that would cover it. And I had love in my life.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It was. It was.
That's so powerful. So you really touched on the mental aspect of that as well, of overcoming that and coming to terms with yourself. How did your family handle what was happening in your life, specifically your husband, but your girls too?
My husband is pretty amazing. I think any man that is there for a woman who is diagnosed and treated is amazing. And we had a lot of conversations about what this was going to do to our marriage, what it was going to do somewhat to our sense of intimacy. He was more concerned about me. I didn't know how to help him, you know, and that was true with my daughters too. I had a daughter at the time that was starting high school. and another one that was in her third year of college. So for the girls, I think part of what's hard with breast cancer is that it really goes to the core of sexuality, right? And when you are in that tender place of figuring out how to not be a teenager, but how to become a young woman, and we're so physically driven now, especially with social media, it was very hard. With Liz, the youngest, I made sure her counselors at school and her teachers knew, only because I wanted them to just be aware of her in terms of maybe moodiness, or crying, or I didn't know how she would process it. I encouraged her to talk to her counselor at school for sure. And I told her I didn't know what to say.
Wow.
I didn't know what to say. With my daughter who was away at college, it was more of should I come home? And it was a sense of no, I will need you more later. You just continue doing what you need to do. And I will share anything and everything with you that you want to know if I can answer it. But I think our most intimate relationships with whomever our partner is are really tough. And I wanted Mark to feel free to reach out to other people and to other resources. One of the things that helped him was some of his guy friends, who would just say, let's go have a beer. We didn't know many people who had had breast cancer. We didn't have a man in our life, aside from my father, who had someone who had struggled with breast cancer. So I think we still have a ways to go with men. But a lot of it was also this agreement, which I just remembered this. After my mastectomy, we decided not to talk about breast cancer in our house.
Wow.
We decided this is our retreat, okay? This is our safe space. It's okay if we cry or of course you're emotional, but during those times when you need to have some of those headier conversations, or I wanted to, we went out. And I think that was really great too, to feel like I have this break. I have this place that doesn't have to be full of everything that feels like every shoe is dropping. And I think that helped both of us too, because it also gives you this sense of, the wall is here, the chair is here. We had so many surprises along the way that it was kind of great to realize the world's still there. Right. And that really helped.
And this is still home.
Right. And this is still home. That's right. That's right. Messy, beautiful, whatever.
Yes.
Yes.
Filled with love.
Yes. And dog hair.
And dog hair.
Yes. Yes.
I love your little doggies. Okay. So you actually took a very unique perspective on this healing process, and that it became a part of your self-image, right? And that you wanted to sort of redefine who you were through your style.
Right.
Which I love. And every time I see you, you're so well dressed.
Oh, thanks.
So tell me about your unique perspective on this.
Okay.
And self-image.
Okay. I had never really been a fashionable person. I don't consider myself to be fashionable, but I know that our first way of communicating is just like our eyes and our smile, and then how we look. And I really wanted to start dressing for myself. I decided, okay, Jane, here we are in this new body. You have new special bras, you have this Lucy prosthesis. So how are you going to be now? How are you going to be? And so I started reading a lot about fashion and design. I have a degree in political science. I know nothing about fashion and design. I really wanted to dress in ways that would bring me energy. It was more about energy than look. It wasn't about what are the trends. It was really more about what can I see that will help me to honor my body and that will really reinforce this sense of, yeah, Jane, you still got it, girl. You still got some mojo. Not for anybody else, but for me, I really needed that. So that took me down a path of really appreciating how style and fashion are a source of healing. And in fact, Scientific American several years ago came out with an article in one of its journals about the power of intentional dressing as a way to help men and women heal. So it was fun, and it was kind of lonely. I think that Mark thought, whatever, just let her in her little office with all the girly things, and I bought sparkles. I put on several events, smaller events. I went to work at Talbot's because I wanted to get a sense of kind of how do you put these things together and how do you see these things differently. But what really what emerged out of that was, I feel very strongly that style can be a very wonderful source of healing and self-expression,
Oh, I love that.
no matter where you are in that process.
That's wonderful.
You know, oftentimes women who've had a mastectomy or two will say that they feel asexual. It breaks my heart. I totally get it. And it's wonderful that we can do things for ourselves that don't necessarily cost a lot of money, to sort of reinforce also that sense of creativity. Creativity is something I can control. You know, there was so much I could not control. And creativity also is a wonderful way to work through crap, right? In a safe and interesting way. So yeah, I played a lot with it. I still do at times.
I love this.
Thanks.
I love this idea. So you brought along some favorite things.
I did.
Things that you discovered in your journey that have helped you.
I did.
To share with our beautiful
I
audience.
did.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
One of the most wonderful gifts I got after my mastectomy was this book called Artful Bras. And Artful Bras is a wonderful review of basically an auction of gorgeous bras that I think it was the South Carolina Quilters Association designed to raise money for breast cancer research and care. And what I loved, because I was so serious about what kind of a bra am I going to wear, and what does Lucy look like, and how this all feels. And what they did, and I'll just try to show you, this is, you know, the book has been loved to death, not to death, but just some really fun, like this is the bra from hell. This is Boobies, because this was done around Halloween.
Boobies.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is brassy and classy and a touch of mink. This is Duckbill Mountains. But what I love is this sense of playing with a bra as a piece of art and as a piece of a story.
I love that.
And that's something else that we can talk about later, but this is called Fall Festival. And this is this beautiful artist's rendition of why she did this, what she put into the bra to make it, and then her story about why this was important to her.
Oh, that's great.
So for me, and it's called Artful Bras, Hooters, Melons, and Books, Oh My.
Yeah.
Okay?
I love
so
that.
So it's really fun.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
then there's this wonderful book, Fashion Feng Shui. People can go to the link, fashionfengshui.com. This woman, Ivana, who has since passed from cancer, unfortunately, she was an image consultant, and she had a wonderful boutique in Boston. She realized women were not so interested in their colors or their seasons, but their energy.
Wow.
And so she went to the School of Feng Shui in California and really developed archetypes around the 5 energy sources, which are wood, metal, fire, water, and earth.
yes. Okay.
So she has, it really opened my eyes to how can I dress with energy. That's really what she's done, and it's lots of fun.
I love that. I think I'm a metal, by the way.
I think you're metal
thinking
too. I
about
think
it.
looking at you,
Yeah,
yes, you're
I think
a
I'm a metal.
perfectionist, and you like high quality.
Yeah.
You like luxury.
Oh, thanks.
They would call you a perfectionist. I'm wood. I'm considered kind of a pioneer, and we
I
do
can
more
see
with
that.
blues and greens, and that's sort of our orientation. But if I want more metal in my life, then I look at some of the things that you do, and I can put on some of those things for myself to give me more of that energy.
I love that.
So yeah, this is really fun. And then most recently, I know that we've done a lot now with bras for women.
Right.
We've done some things with robes, but an amazing young woman who lives in California has designed a collection. It's kind of wardrobe essentials, if you will, like a capsule of clothing. The name of her company is Eileen and Eva, and you can go to eileenandeva.com. She calls it her Heels with Style collection, and it really is comprised of versatile pieces. One thing in particular I wanted to show you, Jasmine. I know one of the things that Eva did so beautifully, and I want to encourage women to take a look at, is she designed this beautiful piece that has sleeves in it. Okay, it's a wrap. And part of what Eva has done is with beautiful seams, you can unsnap them so that if you are getting chemo, you can make that available with the port.
Oh, I love that.
And she also
you don't
has
have to remove your whole top
because
for your
so
port.
often that's been one of the concerns in those
Right.
drafty places. And then she also has pockets inside that can hold the drains
Drain pocket.
after your mastectomy, because that is one of the ickiest things you
Isn't
have to
that
deal
fabulous?
with. Yes, and it's Tencel, it's gorgeous. So I encourage women to take a look at that.
With mother of pearl buttons.
Yes, and then she's also put together some beautiful scarves also that button, so you can almost wear them as ponchos if you like, or you
I
can
love
wrap them
this.
around this to give you more color.
Oh, this is
Isn't
fabulous.
that gorgeous?
Yeah, this is so adorable.
So I guess, in closing, what I want to say is we are all still sassy.
Right.
And that has to do with this lively, spirited way of being a teenager. It's important to grapple with that, to get back into that, and to put on things, ladies, and to look at things that bring you joy.
I love that. Okay, so how can people learn more about you, contact you if they want to keep in touch with you? How do they find you online?
They can go to janeosmith.com
Okay.
or stageyourcomeback.com.
Stageyourcomeback.com.
Yes.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for this opportunity.
It's my pleasure. Okay, guys, this has been another fabulous episode of Behind the Pink Wall. You can catch us right here every Tuesday on cherryblossomintimates.com. See you next week.